Most successful game franchises are known for an iconic element that sends ripples through the industry, sparking change in the way that developers approach their games. Halo is one of those weird cases where almost every installment in its original trilogy introduced something new and zany that the other developers of games took note of and rushed to learn from the lessons that these zany things taught us. In terms of iconic weapons, Half-Life has the gravity gun, Halo CE had the pistol. Halo 2 though? Halo 2 had the battle rifle. The battle rifle is about as iconic to shooter esports as the Chief himself is to console shooters. In a series as long-running as Halo, it stands to reason that there are many different interpretations and takes on this highly memorable weapon. Today I want to take you on a journey through Halo's history as we explore each iteration of this beauty. It's a complicated journey, full of highs and lows, and so many things we'll be discussing. If you find yourself to enjoy the video, feel free to like and subscribe. Or dislike me and call me a poop from a butt in the comments. It's really up to you, I guess. I'm not the boss of you. Or maybe I am. I'm not. Halo 2 is where it all began. Bungie stated that their intention was to take the rifle of the previous game and turn it into something that performed a bit more like a rifle, instead of an SMG. The BR aesthetically I always felt was supposed to be an evolution of the assault rifle. It's got a similar bullpup frame, with a magazine that reloads in the stock. It's got a sight rail installed with a built-in dark blue ammo counter, which is standard issue for UNSC rifles, and the signature curved scope that gives the BR its distinct silhouette. It's a 3-round burst rifle with 36 rounds per mag, and it's easily one of the most wholesome weapons in the series. In the campaign, it's quite similar to the pistol from CE in its role. It's basically all reliable. The weapons sandbox of Halo 2's campaign is a bit less balanced when compared to how tightly everything worked in CE, and the battle rifle does tend to monopolize everything, but when playing on higher difficulties, you do tend to vary your playstyle a bit more. The BR in this game is a really fascinating weapon, not just because of how good of a competitive weapon it ended up being, but because of what it almost was. During development, the beta version of Halo 2 sported a battle rifle with no ammo counter. It was also quite inaccurate when firing from the hip, and when scoped in, it would have become a single-shot weapon, taking about 7 to 8 shots to kill someone. There's an excellent video on the Halo 2 beta I'd advise you check out if you're interested. I'll link it below. In the final game, it's a lot more streamlined and focused as a weapon. Its role in the weapon sandbox is to be a utility weapon, which was the role of the previous game's pistol. The 3-round burst added a layer of skill in that strafing became even more important, and it meant that you had to learn to track so each shot in a burst landed. The real skill, though, came from button combos. Halo 2 is a pretty glitchy game, but in a lot of ways, those glitches unintentionally added a layer of competition that few shooters have. Certain button combos could speed up your fire rate, reload while shooting, pick up a gun without needing to switch, etc., etc. A good player with a battle rifle is one thing, but a good player with a battle rifle who also mastered the button combos and was able to use them effectively in a match? Now that's a legend. It's fascinating to watch competitive Halo 2 matches because so much is going on in the meta. Various players executing complicated button combos in the heat of the moment to allow them to pull off incredible clutches using the battle rifle's utility. Was it broken? Arguably, yeah. But in a competitive environment, I'd say this was beautiful. The battle rifle in Halo 2 couldn't have been more perfect for competitive esports. It was the perfect weapon in a perfect game for it, and there's a reason it's remembered so fondly. Listen to the sounds of the gun, and feel the legacy it carries in your eardrums. In 2007, Halo 3 released, and not only did the assault rifle make a return from being on vacation during Halo 2, the battle rifle also stayed. It looks quite similar to the Halo 2 version, Some detail was added, such as the lights that Halo 3 places on some of its UNSC gear to give it a bit more of a techie military look. It's quite remarkable, actually, how little changed visually. The silhouette of this spectacular beauty was kept intact. What's interesting is that it shares the reload animation of the assault rifle, which furthers my opinion that these two weapons are brothers. Its sound effect is a little bit more subdued and shallow, which I assume was due to the way that every gun seems to have been quieted down in this game, which was so that the series composer Marty O'Donnell's music could be heard better, according to him. In the campaign, I really like the battle rifle. Chief holds the weapon a bit more naturally, without his palms spread in this awkward way, and the lights and the tech on the gun, combined with the darker colors and compact reload animation, lead it to feeling a bit more like a solid piece of military equipment, which fits in with Halo 3's more modern military vibe for the UNSC. Due to the changes in its reliability, it also doesn't absorb so much attention in the weapon sandbox and leaves other weapons to shine a bit better, which is appreciated, which is also probably where we should talk about the multiplayer. Halo 3 is where things get a bit interesting. Halo CE's pistol was nerfed to hell and back in Halo 2, and even given a completely new role in the sandbox. Halo 3's battle rifle was definitely still a reliable precision weapon, but it wasn't quite as reliable as Halo 2's. This is the first game where Bungie seemed to noticeably move away from the idea of a utility weapon that drove the game's combat in a balanced way. Was this a wise move? Esports players still debate the choice to this day, so I guess it matters on what you value in a competitive game. Halo 2 had hit-scan weapons, but Halo 3 actually goes back to the projectile bullets that Halo CE used, though in Halo 3 the projectiles are much slower than CE. Because of this, in Halo 3 you actually have to lead your crosshair ahead of the enemy a bit while shooting. And keep in mind the 3-round burst, which does add a bit of a skill gap on paper, as it's something you need to learn and master. Though here's where the problems with Halo 3's online netcode creep in. On paper, it seems good, but Halo 3 does have some pretty weird netcode issues. I'd love to actually learn what went wrong with the development of Halo 3's netcode, because as I discussed in the Magnum video, your personal skill won't matter much when the match randomly eats up your shots and makes you do no damage. In the online space, the battle rifle has a reputation for being bad. I don't think it's bad per se, because in LAN matches you can feel a bit more consistency and see what Bungie was going for. But online, it's a hard gun to reliably use and master, because you never know when the server will turn against you. I'm personally a fan of the Halo 3 battle rifle, but that's quite an unpopular opinion to have, and it's an unpopular opinion for a good reason. I won't fight it. Outside of an Easter egg in Halo 3 ODST and some concept art for Halo Reach, the battle rifle never returned in any playable form until Halo 4, 5 years after Halo 3. Halo 4 was the first Halo game to have a massive visual redesign for its universe, shifting away from the modern military/alien style aesthetic of Bungie's games to something a bit more science fiction and futuristic. 5 years of tech and a facelift for the series' visual style, and here is the new battle rifle. Immediately, you will notice the amount of detail on it when compared to its last iteration. Almost every inch of this weapon's design tells a story. Each little lever, knob, bolt, screw, etc. has a purpose, and it's quite impressive as far as weapon detail goes for something running on the Xbox 360. Well, the Bungie-era battle rifle was quite curvy and dark. This is more boxy and bright. It sports the futuristic bright metal of the new UNSC, and it's quite angular and sharp in its design. The important details are there, though. The weapon is still bullpup in design. It still sports that sight rail. The signature scope was unfortunately made square, though it does fit the new BR's square look. And it even kept the ammo counter, though the ammo counter is now less digital and more advanced looking, which fits with Halo 4's aesthetic, even if I don't like it personally. Similar to Halo CE's pistol, the battle rifle actually performs differently in the campaign than it does multiplayer. In the campaign, it's the third UNSC weapon you're introduced to in this really cool introduction as it's floating towards you when you step out into the vacuum of space. It is pretty cool. Halo 4 sports hit-scan weapons like Halo 2, has a very fast fire rate and really generous bullet curve, so you'll notice that it's much easier to pick up and use than any iteration of the battle rifle previously. There's very little skill involved when using it, and it's just generally fun. It's one of the better precision weapons in the campaign, and due to its lack of D-scope when being shot at, it can be used at basically any range. In multiplayer, the fire rate is actually slower, but the damage is a bit higher. This was done in a massive balancing update to take the rival DMR down a few notches. Halo 4's multiplayer is hard to talk about critically because of how radically different it plays when compared to other Halo games. Because you can spawn with guns in a personalized loadout, all these weapons that used to be balanced with the idea of you spawning and then having to go out and find them on the map, now they're all balanced with the idea of you just having them whenever you want. It's easily the easiest battle rifle to use in the series. It requires very little thinking on your part outside of making sure your reticle is on the enemy player as you fire. Many casual Halo players love it, and I can understand why. Unfortunately, the more casual nature of the gun infuriated pro players, who felt that Halo 4's competitive scene was shallow because of how easy every gun was to use. Competitive Halo 4 didn't allow for DMRs, so the pros used the battle rifle, and it was quite sad to watch as competitive Halo slowly fell off the map. Pro players really didn't like this game, and there are a lot of reasons why that they've broken down almost to an objective science. When I'm tired and I don't want to think really about killing people, but I don't want to play Call of Duty, Halo 4 is a fun multiplayer game to play, and its battle rifle is good fun to use, but it's definitely a shadow of its former self. With the release of the MCC came Halo 2 Anniversary Multiplayer. And what would a reimagining of Halo 2 multiplayer be without the battle rifle itself? Now, despite being called Halo 2 Anniversary Multiplayer, it actually runs off of a modified version of Halo 4's engine, and was developed by Certain Affinity in less than a year, according to quotes and some of their GDC talks. It's quite impressive what they managed to make given the time constraints they worked within. Some models are repurposed Halo 4 models, redesigned to fit the look of Halo 2. Other models are completely new, and some are even pulled directly from Halo 2 Anniversary's campaign. The battle rifle in Halo 2 Anniversary Multiplayer uses the one pulled from the campaign, though for some reason, it seems less detailed than it was in the campaign. Something about the shaders or the rendering in Halo 2 Anniversary Multiplayer always rubbed me the wrong way. It makes things look like they're made out of rubber. It doesn't take away from the beauty of the weapon though, and what a faithful recreation of the original gun this is. How is the gameplay though? Well, the gameplay is a different story. It looks like Halo 2. The maps are from Halo 2, but it's a multiplayer that's haunted by its roots in Halo 4's engine. The best way to condense it is that it's a casual version of Halo 2, and the battle rifle follows this to a T. The stats may be similar to its original counterpart, but it inherits the aggressive bullet curve from 343's Halo games, which means that this battle rifle is much easier for your average Joe to pick up and master. Remember when I said I play Halo 4 when I'm tired? Well, that's kind of a lie. I actually play Halo 4 Big Team Battle when I'm tired. For a relaxed game of Halo, I actually prefer Halo 2 Anniversary Multiplayer because, well, it's not quite as skill-focused as classic Halo titles. It does a better job of what I feel Halo 4 struggled with. It's an easily accessible Halo game, and it didn't need sprint loadouts or killstreaks to do it. It's my personal favorite modern Halo release, and if you ever see me playing it on the MCC, feel free to message. Halo 4's direct sequel, Halo 5 Guardians, sports the most detailed battle rifle model to date. I mean, just look at it! Say what you will about the aesthetic change in Halo during the Reclaimer saga that started with 4, but 343's artists are quite talented. It's a more polished and updated Halo 4 model, and it now sports a darker color scheme and is much more scuffed up and scratched. I wonder if this was done because it's the signature weapon of Spartan Locke in the campaign, and he's supposed to be a bit more of a spy character, so it makes sense that his signature weapon also kind of fits this aesthetic. During the beta, the ammo counter was a dark orange, and now in the final game it's been turned to a bright yellow, and I'm honestly not a fan. You all know my opinions on UNSC ammo counters. Digital and dark blue or go home. Instead of the square scope from Halo 4, it's been refitted with a rounder red dot sight that snaps in and out of aiming down the sights very quickly. In the campaign, you spawn with the battle rifle whenever you play as Locke, which unfortunately saps some of the variety out of the game when it spawns you with one of the most reliable weapons in almost every mission, having you drain the ammo only to swap it out for a Covenant weapon after just a few encounters at the beginning of the mission. Halo 5's loadout system for the campaign, an overwhelming amount of enemies due to you always having 4 players in the level, leads to the levels feeling a bit more like shooting galleries than proper Halo campaign levels. And this means that the battle rifle is usually the first gun to run out of ammo. Is this a problem with the gun? Well, it's hard to say, but it does feel a bit more like it's Halo 5's campaign design letting the gun down, and not using it creatively within the sandbox like past titles. Halo 5's campaign has a lot of issues, and it's really hard to talk about individual guns within the campaign setting, because of how many of them it just throws at you willy-nilly. So how is it in multiplayer then? Well, at the release of the game, the battle rifle was quite reliable as a pickup. It had an incredibly quick fire rate that sometimes felt like it was firing one shot instead of 3 individuals. It could outclass the Magnum at a range, and while it definitely needed some tweaks, the pro players didn't mind it too much as long as it was just nerfed a little bit. And well, that nerf came. In a massive and out-of-nowhere weapon tuning patch, Halo 5's weapon meta was flipped on its head, and currently the game is in a bit of a weird spot. The Magnum now dominates way more than it should. The assault rifle is reliably able to outperform the battle rifle in certain situations because of its accuracy buff and the headshot multiplier increase, and overall, things are weird in Halo 5. The pro players I talked to appreciated the idea of a weapon rebalance, but they don't agree with how 343 did it. They feel it was an unnecessary, scorched earth approach when a simple tweak would have been suffice. The battle rifle now has a much slower fire rate. Its red reticle range was reduced, and its aim assist kicks in at a shorter distance than it did before. Overall, it's a weapon that's kind of avoided now by the hardcore players, since the Magnum is more easily available and reliable. Thankfully, it isn't all bad news for the battle rifle in Halo 5. Remember how many Magnums Halo 5 had in my Magnum video? Well, Halo 5 lets you make use of that sight rail to attach all sorts of different sights, as well as other attachments under the barrel, and this can lead to dozens of variations. You can mix and match attachments in Warzone, or place certain weapons in custom games to create whatever battle rifle experience you want. Here's a short rundown of the different attachments. Let's start with the sights. First up is the long shot sight. Stripped off the DMR and attached to the rail of the battle rifle, the long shot sight may look a bit more close to home for those who prefer the round scopes on the battle rifle. Now, for those who really prefer the battle rifle's old look, you may enjoy the classic sight. It's no secret that it's designed to bring back memories of happier times for this weapon. The Sentinel sight is a scope that has a zoom function to allow you to scope out longer ranges, or even fight at those ranges if you use the right attachments for it. Seeing as the elites have become much closer to humanity after the end of Halo 3, it makes sense that some technology would be shared. The hybrid sight is the sight of a carbine now reverse engineered for human use. It's very clean, and it's a pretty comfortable sight. The COG sight is a super weird one. When aiming down your sights with it, it gives you information on the enemy's health situation and outlines hostiles in red. It's a bit wonky though because of how much it takes up on the screen and kind of obstructs your vision. It's neat. Finally, the morph sight is a Promethean attachment that lets your battle rifle have a cool aiming down the sights animation that's similar to the light rifles. The range on it is quite small, and it's a bit more flashy than it is useful, but it's cool nonetheless. Now onto the barrel attachments. The long barrel extends the red reticle range, damage drop-off, and range that aim assist works at, making the battle rifle more usable at longer ranges. The laser targeter essentially amps up your bullet magnetism and bullet curve, making your hit registration much more generous. Truly a noob's attachment. The stabilization jets ensure that your weapon won't kick or bounce around as you fire it. It'll stay centered on the screen, thus making recoil easier to manage. It's a cool attachment to combine with ranged scopes. The kinetic bolt attachment loads the battle rifle with the same ammunition Prometheans use. It makes your weapon more viable against vehicles and even lets you subtly push them back with the force of the rounds. It also disintegrates enemies that you land a headshot on, so that's pretty cool. The energy bayonet is a little dagger under your barrel that lets you get instant melee kills, which is quite good considering close quarters isn't the battle rifle's strong suit. The Night Blade attachment can destroy vehicles and knock them back quite easily, but it doesn't really do anything special against players. I don't recommend taking on vehicles with this thing. You'll just get run over. The suppressor is your standard first-person shooter silencer attachment. Makes the gun quieter, takes you off the radar, but lowers the range of your gun. The sound dampener attachment is actually just the suppressor without the range reduction. The fallback is that it isn't compatible with different scopes, so you can't mix and match. Overall, it's kind of pointless in my opinion. You've got your standard extended magazine attachment that increases the amount of bullets per mag. Threat marker. It can put tracking darts on up to 3 different enemies to allow you to track them through walls. It can even detect cloaked enemies if they're stuck with it. You rarely see this attachment though, because there are honestly better things to use. Yeah, it's a lot. Now, all attachments aside, Halo 5's base battle rifle is just a shadow of the original battle rifle. Though, Halo 5 is kind enough to welcome back an old friend. Like the CE Magnum, the Halo 2 battle rifle was recreated in Halo 5. It sports the much preferred Halo 2 anniversary design, uses the anniversary sounds, and even has its damage model tuned to feel close to Halo 2. Sadly, 343 didn't recreate the old reload animation, but it's a small price to pay for such a beauty. Due to how forgiving Halo 5's bullet magnetism and aim assist is, it's much more preferable over the base Halo 5 battle rifle. Whenever you can, ditch the Halo 5 battle rifle for this bad boy and go to town. It's worth it. The battle rifle is quite an important weapon to the Halo series, and I'm excited to see how it will do in the upcoming Halo Infinite. Will it be more along the lines of Halo 4 and 5, or will it be a proper return to form like the good old days? I don't know the answer. We're just gonna have to wait and see. What's your favorite battle rifle, and what fond memories do you have of it? I'd love to hear. And since it's the end of the video, I'll be answering a question from the comment section of the last video. But before I do, I have a question for you guys. What do you want the next History of video to be on? What Halo weapon would you like to see done next? Sound off in the comments. So the question I'll be answering comes from Rai. He says, can someone explain to me why so many people love Halo? Why is it so magical? It looks really boring to me. I'm genuinely curious because so many Halo fans are so quick to hate on the Destiny series. Well, I'll answer your question in a couple of different ways. And you are definitely right that Halo fans are very quick to hate on the Destiny series. And mostly the reason why is kind of like an issue with the old developer leaving Halo and then going on to make something new. Now, I don't really think that that's fair to Destiny, but it also probably doesn't help that Bungie arguably mishandled the Destiny series, so there is a lot of anger towards the way that Bungie treats its player base. Though with Destiny 2 Forsaken, they're definitely on the right track, I feel. I do think the hatred of the Destiny series, purely based off of Bungie kind of like divorcing themselves from the Halo series, I do think that that's silly. Now, as for Halo being magical for a lot of people while looking boring, you've got to understand that for a lot of people, they grew up with the Halo series, so it does hold a very special place in their heart. And for people who do jump into Halo brand new, a lot of the allure comes from how unique it is as a science fiction universe. See, because as far as science fiction goes, Halo takes a very different approach to it. You've got some science fiction stories and settings where they're very hard into the techie aspect of it, where Halo has more of a Star Wars approach to its universe. There's a lot of technology going on, and it takes place in a very futuristic-y setting, but it's presented more like this kind of fantasy. So it's this interesting juxtaposition of the future, but presented almost like a fairy tale of some kind. It's very similar to the way that Destiny does its universe and its presentation, though Destiny leans way heavier into the fantasy aspects of it to the point that it does genuinely have space magic in it. Seeing as you brought up Destiny, I would say if you like Destiny, you might like Halo if you gave it a shot. You might like the tone of its universe, because it is very similar, just a little bit less fantastical and a little bit more grounded. I hope that answers your question, though. Feel free to ask any more questions in the comment section below, guys, and I'll see you on the next video.